very pleasant good morning, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest, along with Mike Lubitz, fresh off new haircut. It's starting to grow in a little bit, Lou. I think you did all right. Did you enlist in the Army or the Marines or something? What happened here? Do we not know that you're going overseas to fight for American freedom? What's happening, kiddo? How you doing?
I have 41. I don't think they want me.
Yeah. You never know, man. They might be a little short-handed right now. The world is a mess.
Yeah, honestly.
Battles everywhere. All right, I got a little show and tell here going here because you know I love oddball pieces of sporting equipment. And I've often lamented the fact that you can't just go to like a Dick's Sporting Goods, you don't see this in any of their ads, and purchase my favorite piece of sporting equipment. Well, it's close now with what I'm holding in or about to hold up here to the camera. And that would be the foreign object. I mean, if you're a professional wrestler, let's say you were an amateur wrestler with aspirations like The Rock to become a pro. I'll never forget, I was doing an interview with The Rock back in the days when he was Dwayne Johnson. And I was having to make a feature about the original kickoff bowl, which would be circa what? That had to be in the early 90s, late 80s, the original kickoff bowl. Remember that when they started adding a college football game before the college football games even got started? It was called the Kickoff Bowl. The University of Miami was involved. They might have been coming off a national championship, which is why that they were one of the invitees to the Kickoff Bowl. Don't remember the exact details of all of the history, but I was summoned and commissioned by some local television station to put together like 4 hours of programming previewing this ball game. All right. So, and it was a good matchup, as I recall. I don't remember who the opponent was, but I do remember interviewing Dwayne Johnson, because in an effort to make 4 hours of programming, Lubie, we had to interview every scrub that was on the University of Miami team. So Dwayne Johnson, he wasn't exactly a scrub. I mean, he was like a backup defensive end. We didn't know he was going to eventually become The Rock and become one of the biggest stars in entertainment history. But he humbly told us, your natural questions when you don't really know too much about a guy, you're going to say, and he was in his final year there at the University of Miami. And we just, naturally ask, I mean, what would be a natural question? Hey, do you want to play pro football? Mm-hmm. So, you're figuring anybody on this team probably has a shot to go on to the pros at some level. And he shocked the hell out of me. I'll never forget this. It's one of the few times that I ask a sports question. And it's kind of like the old adage about being a criminal attorney, where you never want to ask a question in court that you don't already know the answer to if you're defending somebody. Hey, Ray Caruth, did you do it? That was like a famous North Carolina attorney that was defending him, and they happened to ask the wrong question, and it ended up being an easy layup conviction. Anyway, so The Rock says to us, nah, I don't think I'm going to play pro football. We thought, well, everybody wants to be in the NFL. And he says, I'm thinking about going into pro wrestling. We're like, what the fuck? Well, what are you, Wahoo McDaniel? I guess he had the right idea, didn't he? I mean, it worked out well for him. But yeah, I mean, it was always a classic, when you have aspirations to go into it. And I asked him then after that, hey, were you able to purchase somewhere a foreign object so that you could get ready for your new professional career? And he said, you know what? No fucking sporting store, good store sells this kind of thing. But my second only to that would be this. Lubie, can you see this? Is that in front of the camera there? That would be, are you familiar with this particular item? And it has a little lure with it also.
Is that the fisherman thing you always talk about?
This is the Popeil's Pocket Fisherman. One of the great inventions of all time. Now, it doesn't exactly look like something that would fit in your pocket, does it? I mean, if you have this in your pocket, a lot of people are going to think you're taking a lot of testosterone, no? Anyway, and it works. A friend of mine, see, the lure is still on there, and I don't know. It's not smell-o-vision, but can you smell the blood of the fish that was caught on this thing?
I smell something.
What an invention here. And I always was curious about it because of the fact that who's walking around like you're going to your job on Wall Street in New York City or some executive position, and you're thinking, you know what I'd really like to do right now as I get off the subway and I am ensconced in all of this New York City schmutz, which I hated. It was one of the deciding factors in me leaving New York and saying, you know what, I don't want to live here, even though I grew up here and I loved it. I loved all the street games and everything that we played. But I mean, can you think about conceptually what this thing was all about? Where a guy would be wearing like a three-piece suit or whatever, getting ready to do some business, and he decides he wants to get a little bit of relaxation. Breathe. And he says, you know what, let me cast a line into the Hudson River and get some mercury-laced fish that I can catch there. And, what do you do with the fish after that? I guess you throw it back. Pocket fisherman, though, it does work, but I don't know that it really is
Where did you
convenient
get
to have it in
this?
your pocket.
Where did you get this?
Well, I had spoken about it so many times on various
Yes,
shows that we've done that somebody actually gave me one, a
that's
pocket
great.
fisherman, which you can buy online. They're not cheap anymore. I mean, it
Oh,
used to be like
yeah.
$9.99, but underrated, completely underrated. I mean, maybe you put in terms of innovative people that have sort of invented something. I don't know if you would call this an invention. Like Christian Barnard was always my hero because he was the first guy to complete and come up with a heart transplant, which is always
Yes.
nice, right? I mean, your heart's the ticker's not working so good. Boom, here's a new one.
No, that's huge.
Like you're going to a garage, and getting your car fixed up. It was
Yes.
fantastic. Transmission's kind of putzing out on me here. Well, here's a new one. Same thing with the heart. Now, the only thing that's dangerous about that, Luby, is
Yeah.
if you see your doctor, you're in your hospital room there, and you look out and you see your doctor walking into the parking lot or through the parking lot towards the building, and he's holding hands with a baboon. That's when you get
That's not the dream.
a little bit nervous about it.
We got you a heart.
But people think about it. I mean, he came up with the rotisserie oven. That was a brilliant invention. Remember that little Korean lady that was standing in the front on the infomercial? Going, hey, standing ovation for that. And they would start out. They would have like a Cornish game hen, and then they would have like a whole chicken. And the thing was so good that eventually they would just shove a wild boar in there and cook that. It
Tired
was
boy.
great. He had that stuff that would cover your bald spot, which was like basically a can of Krylon. I thought
Yeah.
that's when he started to go off the deep end, Popio, and his career went into serious demise and decline. No doubt about it. That was a bit of a reach, but he had so many different things over the course of time. He had sort of a Vegematic, didn't he? Also come up with
Mhm.
that. Not sure if he invented
I don't
that,
know if he
but
came up with any of these, but I know his name was on them.
well, this was brilliant. I can assure you, and I'm trying my best not to get hooked as I'm doing this. Because there's nothing like a lure in your eyeball. This had to be like from the 1960s, something like that. So yeah, quite the innovative thing. Anyway, yeah, my favorite piece, second favorite piece of sporting equipment, other than the foreign object that you could use if you were a professional wrestler. I don't know if there's much use for the foreign object in any other time. Brass knuckles, I guess, would be something that a lot of people carried around when I was growing up in Brooklyn, which I wanted to address, by the way, before we get into the sporting world a little bit, because there were a lot of goofball things happening in the sporting world yesterday, including did you see the stats, the box score by any chance, or anything on a crawl? Or did you see this guy going nuts? The coach of Northwestern, I believe his name is Collins. Northwestern is playing Purdue yesterday. Purdue, the number 2 team in the country behind the University of Connecticut, who with Danny Hurley is number 1 again, will be number 1 again. And what turns out to be, I mean, didn't you think the Big East, when they lost all of these teams, had kind of dwarfed into, I don't know, like a secondary conference? But they have some tough, hard-banging teams in there, including Rick Pitino's St. John's team, which went down last night. But Northwestern was taking on Purdue. Connecticut is the number 1 team. Purdue with Zach Edey, who he looks like. I mean, I don't want to demean a guy because of his physical appearance, but doesn't he look like he was an extra in the Munsters or one of those?
Yes.
Strange guy. We've been debating whether or not Zach Edey could be a pro, and I don't know. Is that just an antiquated concept to have a big guy that plays inside in the post? He scores well. He seems to have a good feel for the game. I don't know that he's like Bill Walton when it comes to passing out of the post, but is he even a potential pro prospect? Would you not
I
draft a guy
mean,
who was over 7 feet tall and could score and had some sort of athleticism, but
he'll
doesn't
get
shoot the ball for 3?
drafted. He'll be in the league. He's just the problem is and with NIL, that's why he stayed at Purdue as long as he's staying, because he's not going to be a top notch dude in the pros. He's not going to be a top 10 pick. He's not the most fleet of foot. He's not a great defender. He doesn't really have a strong perimeter game. He's a good low post offensive guy, and he's good enough because he's big on defense. And that's the thing is too, they want their bigs to be able to do the switching shit. So
Can't see him out there on a point guard, can you?
They want you to be able to go out. Well, because the bigs now go to the perimeter, right? So you need to be able to defend the perimeter a little bit. And that's not something that Edey's doing. So he'll get in the pros. He's 7 foot. He'll make money. He'll have a career, but he's not. I don't know how long it'll be, and he's not going to be a top. I don't see him going the first round, let alone top 15
Second round,
picks.
maybe you take a shot. Sign him
like
as a
late
undrafted free
first,
agent.
second round. He's a big dude. Maybe you can get
G
him
League.
to make that jumper. He can make the mid-range jumper. Maybe he could, come in, play defense for you.
Can he play in Europe? You would
Oh no,
think.
Europe he can make a ton of money, but
Yeah.
NBA wise, like he'll make more NIL at Purdue than NBA early on. At
Maybe you can
least.
get another 8 years of eligibility there and just have a pro career that way. Which a lot of stories out there now about how the NIL is creating utter and unmonitored chaos. Even though the NCAA lately has looked into a couple of teams, right? Tennessee is being scrutinized. Florida State already got penalized somehow by the
Like
NCAA, which
last
I thought had
year.
been rendered completely powerless. And we always thought that they were somewhat useless. But I don't know how you regulate something that is not able to be regulated.
Well, that's the
It,
thing is that the illegalities were by the state, right? Like Florida, the state of Florida, until they changed their law. First of all, states were putting in laws for NIL, and then it was only for kids on campus, but not every state had that. I didn't understand where the NCAA came in at all, because that was the whole point of the NIL was it's not under the NCAA umbrella. It has nothing to do with the NCAA. But now they got FSU, I guess last year. FSU was already playing under this year. They had their best year in 5
they
years.
were under the salary cap.
Under these penalties. Florida, they got. Tennessee's supposed to get hammered. Michigan's supposed to get hit. Georgia, of all schools, the mighty SEC is actually under massive investigation.
Yeah.
I just don't know what. Okay.
How do you administer any kind of regulation when there is no regulation to it? There were no
Exactly.
parameters or guidelines set up to begin with. So how do you all of a sudden have rules? It's incredible. Anyway, I mean, speaking of rules and violation of rules, in this Northwestern Purdue game, Louis, did you see the discrepancy in the number of free throws taken? I mean, there are a lot of people that suspect that Tim Donaghy is the head of all officiating in all of sports right now. And with everybody sending it in with 2 fists on various betting apps and personally going up to windows there in casinos that are all over the country that are taking sports betting, including now here, at least at one site in South Florida, the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. I would imagine it expands even more. I don't know how they keep that under wraps and give control to one entity. But I would imagine that you'll be able to just walk into any delicatessen and make a couple of bets. The discrepancy in free throws, the Purdue Boilermakers take 46 free throw attempts in the game, make 29.
Oh my God, 40.
You know how many Northwestern had in this ball game? No wonder the guy went nuts.
15?
Absolutely batshit crazy after the game, screaming, came out on the court before the game was actually officially over. There were like a couple of seconds to go, and he came out on the court, the Northwestern coach, and accosted one of the officials. And gave him, I mean, it looked like Earl Weaver berating, or Billy Martin berating an umpire at home plate. As Northwestern shot all of 8 free throw attempts. They went 6 for 8.
They didn't get to double digits?
Oh, 8 free throw attempts versus 46. I mean, Purdue must be the cleanest team that you've ever seen. And Northwestern all of a sudden became the bad boy Pistons. I thought I saw Bill Lambier out there, and of course, body slamming Zach Edey at some point. But yeah, that is ridiculous. I mean, the guy had every right to be just absolutely fuming. A couple of other things, real quick. Almost like a tidbits column here today. This Caitlin Clark. I'm becoming a fan of Caitlin Clark. A lot of people don't like her, but I like women in the game that look like they go beyond the scope of what you would expect from a female player. Not to diminish the women, but you've often said that a lot of women's basketball, whether it's the WNBA or the college ranks,
it's just not athletic.
Rugby's from, right?
It's just not athletic. It's just not athletic. I don't know, Brick City, they play fundamentally sound. It's just not athletic. It's just not.
Clark, though, moved into the, I guess, number 2 spot, or was she already there? But she's closing in on Kelsey Plum, who plays for the Las Vegas Aces and is a hell of a shooter. She's got the all-time record for female or women's college basketball scoring in history, and it looks like Caitlin Clark is going to eclipse that easily. I think she's also searching for another 7 years of eligibility because she's going to take a giant salary cut when she moves on if she plays in the WNBA. So
she'll be one that will get endorsements. So that's where she'll make up her money. Like, people know who she is. She'll be in commercials and stuff, and women's game has become more popular.
Yeah. She is a legitimate shooter. There's no doubt about it. I mean, she's got a little bit of Steph Curry in her when she starts chucking the rock. So congratulations to her. Became the all-time Big Ten leader in scoring. As you might imagine, that she was going to easily eclipse any records that were set there. Your Miami Heat snapped a 7-game losing streak at the hands of the Sacramento Kings last night. So that was a pleasant change for the people here locally. And I love this story. It was like, we didn't touch on this. It came out a couple of, I guess, maybe a week or so ago, that this Camila Valieva, the Russian skater who won the Winter Olympic gold medal a couple of years ago. They finally took her number down. They disqualified her for having some kind of illegal heart medication.
Doping. Oh, illegal heart medication. Okay.
It takes 2 years to make this decision. The International Court of Sporting Appeal or whatever the hell it's called. Who's running that? Sepp Blatter?
Exactly.
I don't know. But I mean, and I heard also simultaneous to that, in conjunction with that, they took down the medal, the gold medal that was won. I believe she was a shot putter by the Russian Tamara Press in 1956. It takes them a long time to come to these decisions. So I think the person posthumously is going to be awarded the gold medal who finished second in that competition. He was one of my favorite athletes of all time, as you know, Lubie. Tamara Press. When I was a kid, this was before anybody knew anything about performance-enhancing drugs, but we all knew the Russians and East Germans were taking something.
Doing stuff, yeah.
And here was a woman who had a ZZ Top beard, even though she was like in her 20s. Weighed about 260. I mean, she was one. Check her out someday. Tamara Press, one of my all-time favorite Olympic athletes. I started out saying about this. There was this big hearing about social media yesterday. Very serious stuff, I guess. I don't know. I mean, what's going to be done about that? But I can't help but think that, geez, I mean, we used to go out on the street and play. That's what I loved about growing up in Brooklyn or the boroughs of New York City. Is that you invented games. You were shooting marbles. You were gambling with the quarters. You were flipping baseball cards. You were playing punch ball, stick ball, any kind of hybrid version of baseball, stoop ball, whatever you could do. And you were on the streets all day. Your mother had to drag you back to the house to eat dinner. You would play even when it was dark, right? Somebody would go steal a car and you'd shine the lights on the field there. And imagine having your car stolen by some 9-year-old. That's got to be somewhat of a surprise. But is that not somewhat of a solution to all of this? My 2 grandchildren, I mean, they're great and a lot of fun, and they do like to do stuff, physical stuff. They're out there playing all the time. But at the same time, I mean, you would have to say at least 50% of their free time is spent like this on a telephone. And is that not what's killing America and society and kids more so than this whole thing about social media? Get out and fucking play. Encourage your kids to do that. And, we couldn't get enough of it as kids, and we were very inventive and creative in that way. And it helped you learn how to socialize a little bit, too, Lubie, as opposed to being just some shut-in that when you're not on your cell phone, you're in the fetal position in the corner going, ma, ma. You don't want that. Let's develop stronger, more well-rounded people. Take the phone away. Make them go outside and play. All right, that's our message for the day. Had a lot of fun being with you on this edition of the Morning Briefing. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. We'll catch you next time right here on Caffeine TV, NoFilter.net, and our various platforms. Happy you guys tuned in. See you on the next edition of the Morning Briefing.